Madam Chair, we are live.
Thank you, Mrs. DeGraw. I want to welcome everyone to our board meeting today. Go ahead and call our meeting to order, and Mrs. Perkins, if you would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I think that we put the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. The floor will be open for a motion to approve the minutes for our previous meeting.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the board minutes from the April 18, 2024 meeting and the special board meeting minutes for May 7, 2024.
Is there a second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Williams, your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go ahead and get started. And first off, glad Mr. Erickson was able to come in because I do have maintenance first on the superintendent report. It's been an eventful couple of weeks as we've had to have some school cancellations due to some of the things. And so I just wanted to be able to go over some of the reports on our maintenance activities with our fixing of the sewers, the septic tanks, plumbing, different projects that we had. I don't have everything on list, and I know Mr. Erickson is super busy, but he was able to come in if there's any questions that the board had. And so on our special meeting last week, we did have an action item to approve the completion of the Terraton Elementary sewer issue. Anybody that's been driving past the school has seen that. Mr. Erickson, is there a summary you'd like to share with the board on that?
All in all, it went well with the little hiccup on fiber. We were able to get a little bit better than grade as far as code goes. So that part went fine. On the way out, we somehow compacted that fiber line, which cost that. Plumbers paid for all that, so we didn't pay for any of that. Yeah, that building should be good. I mean, we really should never have an issue with it after that, and we have enough clean outs that if we ever do have an issue, we can take care of it ourselves. So
With the Hamer septic system, have we had a chance to follow up to do that? We're currently functioning, but are we still just having to pump that every couple of weeks?
no, we're not pumping it at all. It's working fine right as it is right now. With these plumbers, ordered a chemical for up there called BioChoice that I should probably have next week, and it basically treats septic systems and leach fields and kind of it's a what do you want to call it, active bacteria, and it goes in and cleans out and eats out some of that stuff. So that should help over the summer if we put that in. So we're gonna do that up there, but so far we haven't seen anything different. It's just the broken pipe. We fixed the pipe, put a clean out in. It seems to be working.
What was that chemical called?
BioChoice.
BioChoice.
They use it to clean up oil spills. Like, it's really environmentally friendly, but it does what it's supposed to do. So
Perfect. And then, and I know, like, when I did text the board individually to let them know about the different septic things, kid you not, on the second that we had this one done, we had a plug at the girls' locker room at the high school. And
Why not?
why not? Why not with everything? Fortunately, we were able to have the same, the plumber was coming back, we were able to get that plug out today. But it does appear that Mr. Erickson has some plans to go in and fix a few things under the legacy gym. That will probably be next couple of weeks or into the summer. What is your thoughts on that?
we might do it next week. We're keeping that locker room closed for now, just because we don't want water in the pipes at all. The unfortunate thing is they connected plastic and cast iron. Cast iron's about 75 pounds every 6 feet. It's really heavy, so it has to be hung with ceiling joists, I don't know, every 3 feet or so. Well, when they connected the two pipes together, you do that with a rubber coupler. And they didn't put the joist thing there, and so over the years, it's just started to sag, so that piece of pipe is, I don't know, 2 or 3 inches lower than where it should be. So we're toying with the idea of just taking out all that cast iron in that big long run and putting all plastic in, so we alleviate all that. Or if we're just gonna hoist the cast iron up and put a new coupler on it so that it can't sag anymore. I'm leaning towards the plastic. And trying to find a place where we can put a clean out, possibly in that bathroom where we don't have to pull toilets and stuff. In doing that, but it's tricky because you're in crawl spaces and quite a ways back in crawl spaces to maneuver tools and stuff down there is not going to be an easy feat either way, so.
Is this work that you and your crew? can
We
do?
will be doing that. So the only thing the plumber has done is he's pushed that line because we just don't possess anything that can push 200 feet. So he actually had to take 2 machines and feed all the cable out of one and then uncouple it, take his next machine, couple them together and push, keep going. So we went out about 210 feet and basically pushed it out to the main line, but we were under that building the other day. We know exactly how that plumbing runs, and I would say the next year or so, we're probably gonna go through and just start taking cast iron out, and putting in plastic in anywhere that we have it in that building, and we have access to be able to do it. The problem with all the cast iron, there's tons of clean outs in the crawl space, but you can't get a auger or a jetter down in the crawl space to do what you needed to do anyway, so we need some clean outs on main level, and as we're replacing things, we'll probably put it in, so. Yeah, it's one of those things, it's just been a weird.
So they have any problems because of no flow.
Just what you would expect with,
It still use cell phones.
we could still use the cell phones, the internet was down. I think just reminded everybody what it was back in 1990, you know. Those are things that happen, but you know, with the fiber going down, a couple of fortunate things. We were glad it was only our area that was down, and not the rest of the area. Like I said, the plumber, this company's been great. They've been fabulous to work with, and then other than that, just kind of lived through the day, worked out. Other maintenance things, just as we've been sitting down and preparing for the summer projects. We're not gonna go into detail with all those right now. I think when we get to the end of school, we'll be able to come into, let the board know what are the projects that we have in place. But another thing that Mr. Erickson's been working on is, we've been invited to join in to apply for a grant. A clean air grant that would help us look at our coal burners and moving away from those. Dean, you have a summary, you've had a couple of webinars with this group, and again, it's just in the initial stages, but Dean's been the lead on this.
It's federal funding and there's quite a bit, but it's 3 stages. So it's not something that's gonna happen like bang. If we get it. So they essentially, by having 10 or so schools grouped together, they have a better shot at getting more money than doing it individually. So there's a lady from University of Idaho that is kind of heading it up and doing the writing, but we have all the information we have to send in. The first part is due June 1st, and in that, essentially in this first run that they're doing, they'll award $300,000 per building, which seems a bit ridiculous for energy assessment. And so we're trying to find out, are they gonna let you use that for other stuff? Because we have one building we could convert out for $300,000. So the other ones are all a little bit more extensive, but one we could. So anyway, it's done by building. And so it's awarded that way. Then next year, the award amount, I think, is 1.5 million, and it goes up from there in the 3rd year.
Per school.
Per building that we are putting in. But so it means a lot. It is very involved, and there's a lot of paperwork per building and a lot of information that just has to be gathered on numbers and BTUs and stuff that you wouldn't just readily know. And so I'm kind of crunching to try to get that into this lady before June 1st. Because we have to hit the 1st round to be eligible for the 2nd rounds. So it should be good. I mean, that's what they're looking at. It's not just boilers, but anything efficiency, windows, so back of the 38 building, we're putting that in there. The blue gym has got single pane windows in it still. And anywhere else that even our metal framed windows are not as good as vinyl. And so there's upgrade room on all those. So we're trying to incorporate as much of that as we can in this just to see where we get. So I think there's 100 groups that have put in that they're applying. Some of them will get knocked off because they won't have as many enough schools to meet the criteria in their group. But they're giving away 25, 26 awards. So it's 1 in 4 shot awarded money. So yeah, so they reached out to us and we're just trying to do all the legwork to get it in. So
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes.
Does the board have any other questions for Mr. Erickson?
So are we through with the bond money pretty soon? Well,
So we still have some flexibility with the bond money, so we
we'll be
still.
finishing that up.
Yeah, we'll
this
be
summer.
with these summer projects. The only portion, again, that we're looking at is there's the earmarked portion for the track. I believe the board can push that into a fund that holds that until we're ready to do that.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what we'll look at. So
'Cause I wouldn't mind seeing a summary of what's left and what we have up here, Mark.
Yep.
Just to refresh our memories.
yeah, but that will be available for sure during the audit, not the audit, excuse me, the budget hearing this next June meeting. Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Erickson. If you need that.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's plenty to do. We'll keep our fingers crossed that
Yes.
not another building with a sewer issue. But right now, we're almost hitting 100%.
So watch out in here.
I don't know. Transportation, the Bus Right app is up and running. I don't know if any parents out there received this email. We did. My wife was able to get on and load the Bus Right app, and it's really good. It tells you where the kids are at on the bus when the bus was dropped the kids off, the next points, and so it's a really cool thing. Took some time to get it rolling. We have it in place now, and we'll just keep going with it this next school year. Preschool and kindergarten screeners were held on the 30th and the 7th. We have some tentative numbers. We're still recruiting for kindergarten, especially in Tarleton area. And so these are approximate numbers. So if anybody has any kids that they know of that live in district or out of district that want to come, bring them this way. The Eastern Idaho Public Health nurses were here to administer immunizations for all ages. This was actually really nice. We took advantage of this in my family. We have our 12-year-old that needed his booster shots for 7th grade, and he was tickled to death to be able to get immunization right before school. And so he was so excited. Some of the activities we've had over the last couple of weeks, the DYW results. You can see those here. Trixie Smith was the distinguished young woman for West Jefferson. And you can see the breakdown of a lot of the others with the first runner-up, second runner-up, and the different awards for the different categories. I know Mrs. Rigby, your daughter, was on there. I was able to be, not during the DYUW, but during their practices. I was one of the practice judges. And I do want to just say congratulations to all these young women, and a shout out and thank you to all of the adults that helped put this together. With Anna Ball was the one that was running this, and she had a lot of help from others. But these young ladies, when they do their interview, all of the different things, what an uncomfortable thing to do, actually. But they grew so much during that time, and it was amazing. I didn't know a lot about the program, but when I was able to come in and be a practice judge during that interview process, I was really impressed with every single one of these young ladies during that time. So congratulations to all of them. And so here's a picture of the girls that were in it. And Mr. West Jefferson also had theirs. Tate Simmons was chosen as Mr. West Jeff, with Jason Erickson as the first runner up. And you can see the different parts. It was Mr. West Jefferson. They kept it pretty good. It was PG-13 to PG-13 and less. So it was pretty good. So good job, boys. Appreciate you keeping it in that level. But what a fun thing. This is a fundraiser that they do for the junior class. And they're able to take that in and help with their prom and all the different things for the next year. So thanks to these young men. Annie Dowling was the one that helped put that together and choreographed everything as well. High school student body elections were recently held. Brian DeGraw was elected as the student body president, and congratulations to him, and a good group of kids in all these different areas. We have a president, the vice president, secretary, activity manager, social media specialist, and then they for the class presidencies, the student council is doing this a little bit differently this year, and I really like this idea. The kids ran for a senior class, or excuse me, a class council. So individuals had to run, they had to create a video, and the classes elected four. I know the senior class has 5 because I believe they allowed everybody that ran for run in the senior class to be part of it. But the junior, sophomore, and freshman class had 4 individuals, but they did not choose a president, vice president, and so on. One thing that we've found in the history of the elections, and this isn't from last year, but just over the years, sometimes kids will run because they think it's going to be fun for a popularity contest, but they have really not a great desire to really get in and do the work. And so they've had different times where you've had leadership councils that have been less effective because of that, when they actually get into the school year. So these individuals, during the first quarter up through homecoming, they'll have a chance to work together, and then they have a different process of electing who the class presidents, vice presidents, and so forth. So each of these will be elected and placed into a different role. So I'm excited about them doing that. Good luck, and thank you to all these young kids willing to do that. I know the board, you guys remember with some of the topics that have come up over this last year, our student body officers were right in the middle of some of the discussions, and it was uncomfortable for some of them to see the different viewpoints of realizing that, hey, not everybody supports or agrees with how things are run. And when you're a leader, there are going to be times that you want to do something that some people don't like, and so whether it's like leadership is not comfortable at all times. And I know that you guys understand that being in your positions. We're hoping that we can continue with the positive momentum that's been created this last year with the student body classes. And I do have to, again, thank our student body advisor, Annie Dowling, has done an amazing job with that. Baseball and softball both competed at districts. We did not advance out of districts, but it was a successful year for both of those programs. Junior high track had some success. We did have a first place team in the boys for junior high in the boys medley. I do have, my 2 boys ran on that. I do have to shout out Brewer Burtonshaw, was amazing. He was the last runner, the leg runner, I guess that's what you call it, on the other 2, and he was able to cut down almost a half a lap behind on the other runner to be able to get the first place. It was pretty cool. Hayden Summers, as a 7th grader, placed 3rd in that, and you can see some other 3rd place finishes as well with the teams. Into our high school track, and we do have some members that did qualify for state, but Raleigh Calder was a first place winner at the district track meet. He actually broke the West J school record in the long jump during that with 21 feet, 9 inches, 9 3/4 inches with that. So he'll be competing at state, and so will Kathy Montalban, Bella Spencer, Jaren Rojas, Nick Leonardson, our girls medley team, Maggie, Kathy, Bella, and Sierra, and our long jump with Raleigh. And Bella Spencer was recently honored in Post Register for her cross-country state championship win. Again, congratulations for her. She represents West Jefferson very well. And good luck to these track members. They're probably on a bus right now, aren't they?
This morning.
Yeah, Mrs. Scott. So they're on a bus right now heading over to Middleton. They'll be competing on tomorrow and Saturday. So good luck to those track members. Counselor update. Mr. Guimar has opened up the secondary students class requests for next year. This isn't registering, but the students need to go in and request which classes they want. This helps Mr. Guimar build the schedule for next year on where we can place that. They can read about the class descriptions and see their graduation progress. So parents, if you are unaware of that, your kids have access to these on their Google Docs to be able to do that. The senior scholarship night was on May 13th. There were $22,000 in local scholarships awarded. Couldn't do this without all of our local businesses and families that contribute to that. And as of Monday, over $850,000 in scholarships has been offered. 27 of our 47 students have been able to receive that. So that includes the university scholarships as well as the local scholarships. This picture here of Mr. Guimar took 13 high school students to BYU, Idaho to take the Spanish CLEP, CLEP, I believe is what they call it. This is an opportunity for the students who speak multiple languages to be able to earn 9 university credits. And this is for those that speak Spanish. And so they were able to, those that passed the test, and I haven't heard any of the results yet. Mrs. Scott, have you heard? Would you, off the top of your
I
head?
don't think everybody got college credit. There might have been 1 or 2 that didn't, but our highest was Amai Figueroa, who got 9 college credits.
So we did have one student get
And I think
full
they could
9
have
credits.
gotten 12, but there was a written part and they didn't, even Amai didn't want to do that.
You want to try that? So these students have not, up to 9 credits going in to that Spanish, and that's a savings to them of when they're in college of $2,500. So what a great opportunity for these students to take advantage of that. Here's some students that are becoming CPR certified as part of their dual credit health professions class. We'd like to thank Angela Strupp for First Action Rescue. She came in, it was here in the boardroom. And these ladies, I don't think we have any gentlemen on there, no. We're able to do the CPR training on that, so appreciate them and they'll continue with their online CNA stuff as they move forward. So all of these students are working towards getting the pathway in CNA. And so a few upcoming things, Hamer Elementary Music Program, you can see the Guys and Dolls. Get your tickets for the play coming up next week. They will have 5 showings on 4 different days, matinees on May 24th. The school board, we do have our barbecue lunch coming up next week. Tarleton Elementary has a music concert on Monday, the 22nd. High school graduations, the 29th, kinder graduation on the 30th, last day of school, the 30th. We do have that early release date, so remember everybody, Hamer's at 11:30, Tarleton's at 12:30. I know I missed probably a few of the class activities coming in here, so parents, get on the West Jefferson app. In the elementary, those teachers shoot out all sorts of announcements and just notices. I get those all the time. And even though I work at the school, sometimes I'm like, what is going on? That app helps me be aware of it. So any questions, school board members, or comments on anything? It's been a great year. It's been a great year for closing out quick, and we'll see everybody at graduation here this next week. So
Crazy. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Williams. Mrs. DeGraw, do we have any public comments? No. Okay. Well, before we open for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Our first action item, I don't believe we have any purchase or spending items to discuss, but we do have an invoice.
yes. So at the special meeting last week, because of the sewer system that needed to be replaced, I did present to the board a request, an action item to approve up to $30,000 for fixing the sewer in front of the elementary. The funding for that is going to come from either plant facility or pending the ESSER monies that we are able to request. It came in from the plumber for 26,939. So that did come in under what we thought that we budgeted for that. So there's no action that needs to be taken right now, but just reporting back to the school board that it came in less than we approved. So thank you.
Okay. Now how do you say it's Gatsby?
Yeah, that's what Mrs. DeGraw calls it.
That's an accounting acronym, so it's the general accounting practices.
So you'll hear, when we talk about, and you'll probably hear this a lot as we do the audits and things in the fall. Excuse me, the GASB is that, what the GASB valuation, this is not the first time, we've talked about this several different times as I've been superintendent. But this is really this is the decision the board needs to make on whether or not this is something that we should do. So Actuaries Northwest is a company that can conduct this valuation for us. And this valuation, when it's GASB 75, is based on our what do you call that, post-employment?
It assessed our risk in comparison to our retirement obligations.
And so the way that I have this written up in the action item, and we have done this before, that it's a full evaluation of our post-employment benefit plans other than pensions. So our pensions is Percy, that's not under ours. And in the fall, when we have our audit, the auditor is required to come in and look at that specific things as part of that financial audit. One of those things is that the auditor looks at is, has the district completed a GASB 75 valuation? There are different school districts some that do and some that don't, and there's no financial repercussions on whether you have it or not. Well, if a district chooses not to do it, it's guaranteed that there will be a finding in the financial audit done in the fall. Now, we as a district, since I've been here as superintendent, we've never done this. The last couple of years, as I'm looking at the processes, I thought, you know what, this is probably something the school board should decide whether or not is this something that we want to do or not. Our auditor tells us that we're safe doing it by not doing it, but there will always be a finding that you don't, if that makes sense.
It's an unassessed risk, but it's, the last time it was done, I think was 7 years ago. And I don't think I don't think we have a whole lot of risk in relationship to GASB 75.
It seems like we haven't done it in the past, but it's not very cost effective.
Well, so when we look at this, if we were to choose to do this, and then the board could vote to do this if you would like to, it would cost us $5,000
If we just did this year,
for this year.
but if we wanted to also do next year's, it would cost us $7,000.
And I can't remember the cost of the full financial audit. I know it went up because of the ESSER
About
funding.
10,000.
So
What is the advantage?
what would be the advantage of it?
Yes.
What does Mr. Bond have to
It
know?
just assesses our risk. So like, one of the things that he assessed our risk is our subscriptions. And he just informs the board, you have this much money that you have to that you have obligated for the next so many years. And it's just and if I'm over $250,000 in my bank account, that is a risk.
Right.
And so this is just connected to that. And, to the best of my knowledge, our district doesn't have any obligations.
I'm not sure
For our
what they can do
employees.
for $5,000. Come in and do what?
They look at all of our practices and what our requirements are regarding retirement, which I meet that obligation every month
By paying.
by paying our employer portion into Percy. But to be able to assess that, they would have to know what Percy's going to be doing on their percentage increases as to how much I have to pay into it.
So there's nothing that they can tell us. We anticipate that Percy will have an increase. We plan for that in our budgeting process. And really what they would tell us is you are budgeting for it, or there's some risk involved with that. But again, it's not because it's our obligations to our retirees is through Percy,
So,
and that's our only connection.
so in other words, both of you feel comfortable in not doing it.
I feel comfortable not, and because as I talked with our auditor. His only concern is if the school board is okay with having a finding on there, they understand the why behind the
I
finding.
remember him talking about that
Mhm.
before.
Correct.
That's what that's
Well-
the why behind it now.
Yeah.
But if the school board is like, I don't want to have a finding on the audit because the finding is always bad. Then schools have done it, but I don't think it's gonna tell us anything. One way or another and we're not,
The other,
it's a requirement for him to make sure that it's on his audit. But there's nothing in state statute that says we have to do this valuation.
the other thing about our Percy employers portion is the state legislators are the one that approve the Percy increases. But they're also the ones that approve our employer paid benefit portion of our budget. Like they say, okay, if FICA and Medicare is this much and Percy is this much, this is how much we are sending you for your employees to pay out on that.
And once they send it to us,
Then that's
These-
directly where it goes.
then we send it on.
And so the state legislator controls all of that anyway.
So to answer your question, if you're asking me for a recommendation, my recommendation is that we continue as we've done the last few years and choose not to do it. With the understanding that there will be a finding on the audit. That would be mine, but I would also. If the board chooses to direct differently, we'd be
You would
happy
go
to
for it, okay.
apply.
Where does money come if you have to cover the cost?
Out of our discretionary funds.
General fund.
Any other discussion? If not, the floor will be open for a motion to reject the proposed agreement to complete evaluation of the district's post-employment benefit plans.
Well, Madam Chair, so moved.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Those in favor?
I
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Emergency closure.
Yeah, our last action item for today. And this is just to certify. So in Idaho code, when a district cancels school, a school session that's not reflected on the approved calendar, the school board must certify the reasons for the closure. And we do have the two dates here, Hamer Elementary on April 25th. And exactly 1 week later, in Tarrant. And then exactly the, I don't know.
Same thing.
So the emergency closures due to the septic system in Hamer and then the septic plumbing line in Tarleton.
Mr. Williams,
Yes,
we discovered through their work that there was not a septic tank on Tarleton.
correct.
When we submit it to the state, it should only say plumbing
Plumbing.
line.
Thank you.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to certify the emergency closures for the dates mentioned above. Madam Chair, I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Discussion items.
So now that we're moving into the discussion items, again, these are not being voted on. These are things that will be looked at in the future, so that those that are able to, that are here in attendance or are listening to the school board meeting from the YouTube channel. This would be a great time to give the feedback. I only have two different proposals and changes on the fees. Everything else, school lunch will be going up a small percentage, but it doesn't require a fee hearing because it's less than the 5% required to have a fee hearing. The clubs here at the high school are FFA, BPA, and the FCCLA. They all have a student affiliation fee. This is a fee that will go in that goes to their state and national affiliations. Right now, our FCCLA has a $16 affiliation fee. We're proposing to move that up to 20. Just the state does increase theirs every single year a little bit. And so this is just to adjust that, but because it is over the percentage mark, it just needs to come before the board and before the community. So this is going to be one that will go up for next year. The second one is there's just gonna be a change in the way that we have our early childhood peer model preschool. And that does sound like a mouthful, but it's important that we look at the preschool program here at Territon Elementary, not as, it is not a, preschool that's available to all students. There's an acronym in education called FAPE, the Free and Appropriate Public Education. And by law, that is available for kids through school age, which is going to be kindergarten through high school. That's where most kids fall with FAPE. However, students who qualify for special education from 3 to 21, FAPE falls for those kids under that. So if a child is a young toddler and they have developed speech impediments or different things that parents recognize and are working with infant toddlers, those kids transition into special education at 3 years old. And when they do that, they fall under the umbrella of FAPE, or Free Appropriate Public Education, for the school district. And that is why we have that preschool. So basically, our only obligation for preschool students as a district is for those students with that qualify for special education services. So question on that.
Does it also mean kids that can't speak English?
It can be helped. There's other federal programs, it's not special education, but students who do not speak English at that age, they're not given FAPE, but this is where it moves into different programs and such. So best practices indicate that those students who are in a setting receiving special education services benefit by having peer models or other students without those disabilities to help them improve. Also, with that, students who are learning English have a better chance when they come in at a younger age. And so there are federal resources available through our Title I programs that can go down to help those students that are learning English. Even though special education and programs like Title I are both federal funded programs, they're separate programs. And they have different rules that guide those. And sometimes they can go side by side, and sometimes they can be separate. So in our preschool, we do have students, again, because it's a preschool that's for the special education students. We also utilize title funds that help those students that are learning English as well. And so because of that, we have to cap and control what's happening at preschool. And as much as I would like to, because I think preschool is great for everybody, I would like to say, yeah, let's invite every single person. But if we have 18 peer models with 1 kid or 2 kids with special needs, pretty soon that attention is now being taken away from the kids with special needs to the peer models, which takes away from the program. In different years, it fluctuates also, because there's some years, kind of like our kindergarten numbers for this upcoming year, there's only 20 kids total. Right now, we have around 40 typical peers that are wanting to come into preschool. So I've asked our preschool teacher to come up with some different ideas on how that could be offered. In the past, we've offered it 4 days a week for typical peers. This year, we want to change that to say 2 days a week for typical peers, which will allow us to keep our class sizes smaller and allow us to focus in on those students with special needs more appropriately for them. And so really, we are asking for a fee, and it's a change in the way that we've done it. In the past, we've asked parents to pay by the month. And we want them to pay by the semester now. It's going to make it easier for our secretaries and staff to make sure that we've had people that have paid for it. Now, I'll be clear again, people that have to pay for this are only the typical peers. Students with special education needs, they do not have to pay for that because it's covered under their FAPE, under the Free and Appropriate Public Education. And so what we are proposing is that preschool services will be $400 for the entire school year or $200 per semester. As we've compared with other districts, some districts have gone 4 days a week. They don't go for the length of time, it's a little bit less. We're still pretty close to where others are at as well. There's, and you can see there's different parts in here of four, we want to have 3 sessions for 4-year-olds and 1 session for 3-year-olds, just to make sure we have the appropriate peer mentors that are available.
Cap on this.
The preschool program, I don't know if she has a cap on here. I know she mentioned the exact number, but again, we want those numbers to be lower, and that's why we want to split it into the twice a week.
Just as a note, currently it costs $405 a year
So
at
we're,
our current plan.
so the current plan costs 405, you might say this is going down, but because we are changing
Setup.
the setup of it, I just wanted to have a fee hearing, just so parents, if they disagree with this, they can come in and talk about it. But even as I finish that sentence, the whole program is for students with special needs. The peer models are optional. It's an optional educational opportunity for them.
First come, first served.
Usually, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure how they take.
They
them
have
outside.
registration, just like they did for
They get them on a
kindergarten,
waiting
so
list.
that's where they got the numbers from.
So the district does reserve the rights to offer the 2-day a week differently based on us being able to hire people here at the school. So if it is going to be something that helps the school out by recruiting a paraprofessional or teacher into the school with a 4-day preschool, we reserve that right as well. So any questions on the fee increases?
Those are the only 2.
Those are the only 2 that we have. Everything else, we're gonna hold.
Because I hate to see any fee increases in such a hard, a hard
It
time,
is.
but we have hard times too. That's good.
Yep, we have to still be
Physically
physically
responsible.
responsible for that. Okay. That's all I have on the fee increases, Madam Chair.
Curriculum committees.
Just as with information, there are several committees that are in the works right now. So currently there's 3 departments that are wanting to review curriculums. How we've done that in our district is our administrators have put together curriculum committees. Then they will bring recommendations to the board. I don't have anything right now to bring to the board, but there are 3. The 3 that we're looking at, our counselor department is looking at a social emotional learning. This would be one where Mr. DeGraw would be able to have a curriculum that when he visits classes, he can talk about different elements of social emotional learning. Some of these are how to get along with others, how to deal with grief, different things like that. These are mini lessons that they're looking at. Right now, we don't have a set resource for that. He's just wanting to have that. And so, question on
Are
it.
they mini lessons to mini groups?
Yeah,
Groups?
yeah, so how we do it right now is he would either have lessons that he brings groups of students into his office. If he's bringing kids into this office, that's all with parent permission at that point.
I see.
There are other times that he will go into a full classroom and teach the entire class.
That's typically where this curriculum would be used, is in those big group classroom settings.
So that would be available. English as a second language, this would be with Mrs. Torrio. We're looking to find something that we might be able to utilize to help our students as they are learning English here at the school. And the last one, a couple weeks ago, myself and Mrs. Erickson, the elementary principal to be coming up, along with a couple of other elementary teachers, we went to a training. And one of the things that they talked about is tier 1 instruction. When you hear the word tier 1 instruction, that means your main instruction in the class every single day. So there's 3 tiers that when we talk about instruction and education. Tier 1 is what's done with all the kids in the class. Tier 2 would be like our walk to read section where kids are going in and out of the class. And then tier 3 would be your most intensive need. And so we're trying to get products and different things in each of those levels. Right now, our tier 2 would be like our 95% program for the most part. So the thing that we've been doing with 95% has been tier 2, but we've been doing that for everybody because we've needed that. After COVID, we were trying to make sure all those kids have it. We're starting to see one thing that we could strengthen would be our elementary English language arts having a curriculum. Now, curriculum doesn't always mean going out and buying a very expensive program. I sometimes I think, and you know this, Nedra, from when you were on the curriculum committees and different things when you were in your district in Utah. A lot of times you'll have companies come in and they'll have box sets and they're very, very, very expensive. Some of the things that we're looking at where we feel very confident with our 95%, that it meets a lot of the standards that we need, but we have to find something else to help us be more consistent with what are our teachers teaching. And that goes back to the questions we ask in the professional learning communities. What is it that we want our students to learn? How do we know they know it? What do we do when they do or don't? What do they do when they do? And we haven't looked at anything else, but I want to start that process with our elementary, even if that means we pilot a few different programs, because our K through 6 English language arts curriculum that we currently have, it's really old. It's outdated and we've been limping along. We've been making strides with it, but I think it's time for us to look at it. And there are some free resources that would just require or less expensive resources that could help us be streamlined that I want us to look into. Right now, I don't have any specific ones, but when we get the committee together, I'm going to have Mrs. Erickson lead out on this once she gets in as principal. So I just want to do that as a heads up, and partly because if there's any patrons or parents that want to be on these committees, call us, let us know. We'd love to have you come and look at that. What that typically means is there'd be different meetings that you'd get together with a small committee, review 2 or 3 different curriculums, give your pros and cons, give us the feedback, and then we'll present that to the school board before we adopt them. Does the school board have any questions on this process?
I wouldn't mind seeing what they come up with. I mean, you know, we will when they finally come up with something, but
Well, if you're interested earlier on, like we could give you sneak peeks at it as well. You don't have to wait as well. You guys can come in and look at that earlier if you would like to.
wouldn't mind doing that.
So it's individually that allows you to come in without it becoming a board committee.
Correct.
Whereas if we had board members assigned to it, then everything would have to be through the open meeting.
law, and
We
I would
should
have
have that one and the first one, the social emotional learning.
Yep.
Would have to be looked at really closely.
Everything does nowadays. I don't think,
Yeah.
nowadays, everything has to be looked at. One thing, even if you find something in a curriculum that might not be, I guess accepted by different communities. At the end of the day, just because a curriculum is here, doesn't mean that we're robots and we teach every single little thing. So if we have a curriculum that's really, really good, and maybe they have one story in the English language art that might lean one politically way that might not be appropriate or according to some people's ideas, that doesn't mean that we as teachers have to teach that. And administration, if we're aware of that, we kick those things out.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of all of this is we still have local control and we still can use common sense. We want to have something that reflects what our community wants to have.
Well, you don't want to start something because things are going well and
Yeah.
one little thing like that.
Well, I
Just
can tell
really-
you, if you're, I'll be blunt on, there are different curriculums. And so when I was at this training, there was a principal, or superintendent at a smaller school district. And he came out and he was talking about their tier 1 instruction. And he said in our district, we had something blow up. And this was 2 or 3 years ago where I learned a new acronym, CRT. I had no idea what that meant or what that was.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden in social media and in the news outlets, I was learning that we were teaching that like crazy, and I'm thinking, I had to go look it up as superintendent, what does that even mean? I have no idea, so that just goes to show you that, like, and so. In that district, they had that allegation that your curriculum is teaching that. And so they went through the whole process, and that's exactly what they came back to is. They brought their community members in and they said, look at this curriculum that we're using, look at these other curriculums that we could purchase. And they had price tags, they had pros and cons on everything. And they said, the one that we're using, the one that everybody is upset about, saying that we're doing CRT on. This is how we're using it, and if this is the story that you're upset about, our teachers aren't even gonna teach that anyway. And all the community members there said, oh, that's what you do? Great, let's stick with it, why change it? So that's the rest of the story, that nobody ever gets that back.
But you have to have a community that trusts you. And
You do have to.
whoever
Yes,
ever that trust ever goes out the door, then you
right,
have to constantly.
and there's nothing that we can't do to discuss that, so.
So after that came out, as a district, our administrators and teachers reviewed what was being taught to ensure that those
Yes.
things are not being taught in our community.
Yes, and if parents have questions about it, the best thing to do is go to your administrator. Come visit with me, like, let's go look at it, because we want to make sure that we are providing an education that our community wants. So that's how our curriculum committees work, so.
Great.
I did learn that new acronym, and afterwards I said, oh, so it was your fault.
Yeah.
All right, policy review.
Okay, I need to take a drink first. I'd like us to review our just high school graduation requirements as we're looking at different changes going forward. This is what we adopted last year. And just as an FYI, the state of Idaho is starting to review their statewide required graduation requirements. I anticipate that they're not going to change the number, the 46. But what they might look at is changing some of these things with their state required ones. So that's a to be determined on that. As of right now, West Jefferson has, our only changes, we have 3 different classes that we require that the state does not. And we just count them as the electives. One of those would be the computer elective. And the other 2 would be world history required ones. So that's what we decided last year. We may want to review our computer electives. I need to meet still a little bit more with Mrs. Scott and Mr. Guimar. Where last year, we were operating under enrollment funding, which meant we were funded 100% from enrollment. This current year is the first year after COVID, since COVID, excuse me, that we have gone back to being funded through average daily attendance. So what that means, and I'm being clear because I'm hoping people watch this. I know the board has heard me talk about this a lot of different times, but average daily attendance, we only get funded based on when your kids are here at school. As we've ran the numbers and as that funding has changed, we qualify for less teachers because of that funding change. And because of that, we've had to make some changes at the high school where we will have 1 fewer math teacher. And we've had to take our BPA teacher down to only a 0.2, which means that she'll be able to only teach 2 BPA classes or computer classes. So that might be something that we want to look at throughout the summer on whether or not we need to look at these required West Jefferson ones and just go back to the basic ones. Other things that we want to have for discussion, and I did invite Mrs. Scott to come in and help out with are, let's see, other things for graduation. I believe I have them right here. So our, in policy, right now in 2700P, senior project, the state does have a senior project that needs to be completed. And this is all it says is the building administrator will set project specifics. Mrs. Scott is here to help us with some of those specifics. This last year in our handbook, we did not have those written out for the students. And that did cause some confusion for some of the students and also a little bit of heartache probably for parents and also administrators. But we are putting those in now that I know that they've met with the junior class moving forward. So these expectations are understood. I can tell you that we have never had a student up to this point that was not able to graduate because of lack of finishing their senior project. They've all completed their senior project to a point which allowed them to graduate. So I'm taking away the fear from everybody that's out there going, oh no, my kid will never graduate. So we'll talk about that. The other things that are in state code, civics tests. We do give a civics test here in the school. Can you, Mrs. Scott, were you able to talk to Mr. Gore a little bit? Can you just give us a brief summary on that? I'm saving the senior project for last, and we'll circle back to that. 'Cause that
Yeah,
will
he
take.
just says he uses the practice civics test from Homeland Security, so I'm assuming they allow them to choose what test they wanna do. It asks 20 questions. There is a link that I can let you look at. You can also Google it. The civics test demonstrates that students at least know the basic history and workings of US government. It was put in place by President Trump, and students have to get a 70% or higher. And he said that he has let the counselor know who still hasn't passed, but then he also said it can prevent graduation, but they keep allowing them,
Retake it.
yes, to retake it. And so he says the number is probably less than 4 that he knows of, and he just may need to check with those 4 and see if they've completed them. So that's what I know. I did Google the test and got the first question right when I practiced. I didn't finish, but you can go to it. It's just under US Citizenship and Immigration Services, and there's a practice civics test.
So Christy, do we teach a civics class?
Well, that would be hit through your US history and the government classes that they take their junior and
And they
senior
have to
years.
take that junior year. so-
Well, they have to take government senior year and the US history junior year, and so it's kind of a compilation of it, and my guess is he addresses those questions and like that, but they're basic knowledge of the federal government. Like the question that was asked is what can citizens do in the United States if they're not like in an elective office? And it listed 4 choices. And it was all 3 of the things, like they were very obvious, like you can vote, you can go talk to your elected officials. I can't remember the third one, but I was like, so they're not terribly hard.
I will attach this test to our board docs,
Okay.
so you guys can see what the
And
100 questions.
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't get it to them sooner. I got a text, but that's what they're using right now.
So let's spend like I said, with any proposal of changing this would happen after a work meeting. We need to get together on a work meeting to discuss that. But let's discuss the senior project. So Mrs. Scott, if you wanna just kind of give us an overview, I'm gonna open this up. Get that printed out for him, Mr. Groff.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this, I wasn't aware there were issues. It can feel a little bit daunting if you don't understand it, for kids, but we start their junior year, but we talk about it, try to invite students to it. I want you to look at the why first, I guess, like it is a state requirement. When we started it, our first principal that led it did just the basic, which was a presentation and a research paper. And so in the why, it said what we have now is kind of a student driven, like they asked us, they're like, why can't we do a project with it? So this was, I didn't put a date, it's not recent, but it was the year when Joey Ramirez, Braxton Ramirez were juniors. And they were, I know Jory in particular, and then their senior class president were kind of the spearhead of pushing this. And so the leadership team, which at the time there was Mrs. Bell, Mr. Swickey, I was a part of it. We had counselor, I can't remember who it was, and then principal at the time, which again, that started just kind of gel together. But I do remember Mrs. Bell, and Swickey meeting a lot with these kids. And so after school got out, they gathered some different ones. They proposed it to us. We worked through the summer to try to bring in the project. And I guess what's cool is that element of the project part, really kind of added a powerful element, I think, that makes ours really unique. And we continue to refine and perfect the project every year, since we've put it in. There's 4 components, but really 3 big ones. So right now the juniors are creating the proposal, and I have a finished booklet that I can leave. I told my son, so for years I just did the research paper, and you'll look to the side of people who help the students through this. And so I had never helped the student go all the way through the project because I just did the research paper. And then we would hand them on to the next people that help them. But the junior proposal is just where they tell, oops, that came open, where they're gonna tell a board, and it includes a principal, counselor, and then their English teachers, because that's typically where it starts, what they want to do and why we have the proposal. If you look down at the bottom, I'm not gonna read everything, you can look at it, but skills gained and practiced through this project. For me, these soft skills, I think, are the most powerful part of the whole senior project. And under each element of the project, we've tried to list like some of the soft skills that they will gain that they can take out into the world with them. I've been surprised as I've helped kids through this, how hard it has been for them to call and ask a mentor to be their mentor. But that's a skill that our kids need to be able to call people, talk to them, outsource, network. And I've seen some really cool things happen because of it. I remember a student in particular just last year who was really having a hard time calling. So I said, well, I will call them and ask them about it, but you still have to call and ask them if you can go. So to try, so those are kind of the steps that we help kids with, but then there's some kids that are like, I know who it is, I know who I want, and they go right out and just do it. So there's different elements where kids excel and sometimes where it's hard for them. But to me, the skills gained and practiced are what is the most powerful things that I think kids get out of this. So the 4 components, this is the proposal. We teach them, like, I think my new favorite thing, it didn't start this way, but we teach them to use Canva, which is a free graphic design element. And in this day and age, kids need to know how to do some basic graphic design. And I know that's being carried on as I've been gone, and I love that element of it. And so they're getting ready to propose right now. They write a business letter to their teacher advisor. So if you look over to where it says supports that we've built in to try to help the students, they have a mentor who will help with the project. They have a teacher advisor, which is in our school, and they are not the English teachers. So any other teacher will be the teacher advisor. They will take 3 kids and sometimes 4. I know with our upcoming, they're sophomores now, but juniors next year, we're gonna probably have to have each teacher take 4 because they're a bigger class. And so throughout the whole year, that teacher advisor can help them, but they write a business letter to them telling them, this is my project, this is what I'm thinking about doing with my paper. And the junior English teacher helps them make the proposal and present it. So that's in the works. The research paper has always been done, even before the senior project came. We always did a senior research paper. When Mrs. Taylor got the word from the state to implement the senior project, she really liked the problem solution. And we kept that one. We added in an informative at one point in time. We got rid of it because kids had a really hard time not just writing like if they went and job shadowed an EMT, they just said, this is how you're an EMT. We want them to dig a little bit deeper and kind of separate the project and the research paper. And I'll give you some examples in just a sec, but so the research paper can be an argumentative paper or a problem solution paper. And in my classes, when I taught it, I just let them choose and we kind of did divide. We still did similar elements, but when I needed to talk to kids with the argumentative, the problem solution would be researching, doing note cards, etc. So it's kind of a cool process where they have some choice in the type of paper they write, but also what they choose for their paper topic. So I'll give you for instance, one that I tried to print the paper. I really wanted you to see it. I'm going to try and find it. It's probably one of the best that I've ever read, and it was actually last year. Last year? No worries. Yeah, it was. I don't want to say normal, but just senior English classes, they write typically a 6 to 8 page research paper, and the dual credit does 10 to 12. We really want to push our dual credit kids to. I mean, 10 to 12, when they go to college, we want them to be comfortable with that and not shocked or surprised that they have to write a longer paper. So they spend some time doing that. I've never had a problem. I think the record that I've had is a 23-page paper. It actually was written by an employee who works over at the elementary. Addie Benson, Addie Briggs, excuse me. And she did, her paper was on like schools. So I find it interesting. She's in education and she wrote a really awesome research paper about it. The one last year that like, after I read it, I just enjoyed reading it. It was so well written, so well researched. Her project was on event planning and she went to a florist shop. So this is where I want you to see like how they can diversify their paper a little bit. She actually wrote a paper on problems in schools of like not pushing creativity enough. So the lack of creativity in schools, and it was a really phenomenal paper. She found some really good research that she liked. And one thing we try to get kids to see, so if you look at, I'm trying to think where it's at, because to me, the research paper, it's up in the purpose and vision. When kids write research, this is what I tell them. You are creating a brand new piece of writing that nobody's done before when you write a research paper. And it's kind of cool. We have students who I know have been published in journal articles that have done this project. And no, they're not going to get published with this particular paper, but they're learning a process that can be really important in a lot of different fields that they go into. And some kids may never do it again, which is fine, but it's still such a neat process. So English teacher takes care of that. Then we move to the project and the kids can start. We tell them, think about when you're busy, when you have time. So a lot of kids work in the summer. We give them a lot of time to do the project. And as they're proposing, we kind of ask, like, when do you anticipate you're going to work on the project? When does it fit for you? They have some choice with the project with like kind of an umbrella choice. So a job shadow, which could be anything they choose. They can do a service, which I don't know if any of you've seen some of our high school kids like put on sport camps or dance clinics or cheer things. And then an academic project, which this year I just printed, this was this year's topics. And some of my favorite were, a lot of kids did some really creative things. Like we had some leather work, we had some artwork, big, beautiful paintings. Like, so to me, we kind of classify those as an academic or creative project that they can choose, which there's just some really neat things. Finally, the portfolio and presentation is a reflection of all that work put together. So here's a finished portfolio. Adore my son, but this is probably an average, like did the things needed portfolio, but still he was really proud of doing this. But I told him I got to keep it as a future reference because to me, this is an organization project. You've already got pretty much everything done. So if you open it up, it's got the proposal, it's got a table of contents. So it's kind of a project where it makes them reflect and put everything together. It's got the research paper in it. It's got evidence from their project and what they did. And then the last thing that they would do to finish it off, so all this stuff would be done when they go to put this together, is some reflection. What did you learn? What would you do different? I'll tell you a really cool story. I had a student who went to my husband's lab. She had a relative who was a lab tech in a hospital and she couldn't go. So I said, well, I want you to know a lab manager. She went and she got it done in 3 days. She hated it. And I said, well, aren't you glad that you learned now before you went to college and spent all this money and you didn't like this job? And fortunately, she's actually in education and she's getting a master's now, which is really cool. But to me, even though we might consider that a failure, it was really a success because she learned like, wow, that's cool, but it's not for me. So I like all of the different elements of reflection and what they have to put together. And if you came this year, one of the things that I loved when this first started here was Mrs. Taylor really wanted to bring our community in to see an academic element. And I don't want to say we lost it, but I know my son Jerry, he was so excited because he loves to present and talk. And he had one parent come over, he'd even bought like candy bars and he was going to have him practice some of the chants. And he had one parent come over and then we went over because we felt bad. And she had community members come in and be judges, and I remembered that because I wanted the community to come back. And minus the fact that they said it was a little loud and sometimes crowded, I had so many amazing compliments of, I can't believe what these kids have done, and they stayed. Like my husband and I estimated we had over 200 people at the senior presentation night. Like, it was really neat, some of the comments we got, but also, and I know Tyson came, I don't know if he's told you about any of it, but a student in particular that I just think she presented in not only English, but in Spanish to a lot of parents who came. And she was there the whole night talking and didn't finish until we were almost all cleaned up. So to me, I just think like, just that little moment was a really powerful success of the vision. So when I say we keep continuing to try to perfect and streamline, if you look at this list, we know there's some kids who get a lot of help and some that it's hard. And so we started talking, and it's that last thing at the bottom, we've talked a little bit about the teacher advisors, like making more intentional time with the teacher advisors on some of our check-in days or tutoring days. And then also we're adding in a class to help the kids who, and it's not required, you can sign up as an elective. But if we find a kid is behind, and we did have a few kids that were behind. If you're behind, you're gonna get in this class as an elective, and it will help you do the portfolio and finish up, like if you didn't have your project hours done, or. So we're trying to just continue to streamline. I love this last part. Our new English teacher, she did, it's in my room, so Mrs. Smith, she was in charge of Thunder Ridges, and she had to be really organized because she was running, I think she had 150 students, and they had other teachers, but she was running them through classes. And so she has started just being really organized. So like, this is a proposal part. She has one for every junior that's doing it, printed out a sticky. I was like a little envious of how awesome of how organized she is. And I love it. Because then she'll give this to the kids when they come back, and they'll start putting it into their portfolio. Her and Mr. Guimar are also working together with, we have all of this online. Kids get a shared, it's a Google Drive shared link that has the booklet, which she's also working on streamlining. She's really good at that, so that it fits with what she's now taken the kids through. And I love that she has kind of a fresh perspective. So that's what we have. I can talk about it a lot because I love it a lot. And I think there's really good things happening, but I would be curious of some of your questions or concerns or comments about it.
You said Mrs. Smith has a booklet online, a booklet for.
Well, Mr. Guimar has had that. So we have a booklet for kids that walks them through this like instructional. So like when they're going to pick a topic, there's a whole section. And this was actually put together with this first student group. Like they found things that they wanted to go in. How we're trying to streamline it though, is there's some extraneous things that don't need to be in there. And we're trying to cut so that it fits with what we've done. It also has like the grade sheet of what goes in the portfolio. So it's got a lot of things that the kids can utilize throughout the year. I used to print it and give it to them, but they're very like tech and they like to share it, but then kids can always access it.
So in that book, you've got a proposal. And then
This
you
is-
have the actual, they have to tell what they did.
This is the whole thing. He printed out his slides that were in there that he presented that night. It has the evidence of him doing the project. The mentors, one thing that's interesting, a lot of kids ask, and some people are like, well, why can't it? We don't want family members to be mentors, but that doesn't mean they can't help. And one of the reasons is for our kids to network and go work with some people who might help them, which we've seen. So that's been kind of cool. But I'll give you a really good, for instance, that I remember. So Chloe Moss wanted to get her pilot's license. Her dad's the one that did the hours, but Talisha Hillman, because she's air traffic controller, was her mentor and verified that she did the time. So there's a lot of ways that we try to work with kids to be able to do projects.
So do the research papers typically relate to the project, or are they going to be totally different?
We encourage them not to, but it can. So I'll give you like with his, he
Clarify that, you encourage them to not be different, or do you encourage them to be different?
to be different, because we don't just want them, so like if they were to job shadow, like what the student did in my husband's lab, and she might come in, so instead of just being like, this is what I did in my job shadow, we don't want that. We want her to do some research about clinical app science. So I don't remember what she did. I actually think she might have done it on medical testing. And how expensive it is and how they can like help people so it doesn't cost so much to go get medical testing. But it's still connected to her project. And each English teacher does it a little bit different. And when I did it, I made the kids come up with 9 different ideas. Because sometimes the first idea isn't always the best. And then I also would have them go do some research because can you find information to write a 10 to 12 page paper on what you're doing? And so the one that I told you about, like with that student last year who did event planning, but then her research paper was on the lack of creativity in schools or how it kind of goes away and why it's needed in this day and age. So it still connects, but it's not about event planning. But some get kind of literal, like my son did auctioneering, and his research paper was on, it was argumentative of which is better. Is online auction better or is in-person auction better? And so that was his argument, so it's still connected, but it wasn't about being an auctioneer, it was a little bit different. Does that make sense?
So then that's why you have the reflective essay separate from the research paper.
Yes, and so the reflective essay at the end is actually really like, it's in first person. So there's some questions that you're like, what'd you learn from doing your project? What was something that you do differently? So it's more of a reflection of the whole thing once they're done. And it's just a short.
There's a lot of forms you've filled out.
Yes, and you know, one of the things with the forms, like, so this is what she's got in now for a student, and I can show you this. We also think, how many of you have to fill out a lot of forms and sign a lot of things? So I didn't put that in as a real world skill, which I probably should add to the portfolio, but making sure things are complete. Parents need to sign, they need to read this stuff, and if they do or don't, like, we're encouraging kids to kind of compile that. So this will show you, like, they have to like go get signatures and talk to people, and it's kind of cool. There's not tons though. I don't know if you want to hand it to people so they can look, but I don't think there's enough that it's hard. And the people they have to sign are their mentor, teacher, advisor, their parents and themselves. So that's really all they have to go do. And I guess their English teacher. So I know it's kind of long, but I love it.
What are they giving the advisors?
So what we do with that is the kids, when they propose, so next week we're gonna start the junior proposals. We have a form filled out, just teacher advisor, and we just put like 5, they don't have to fill out all 5. We really try hard to give them one that they list, but I just tell them like the better the reason, more likely you're gonna get, but we do try to sometimes fit it with what they're doing. So like Jelena, she takes a lot of her kids that needs me, if that makes sense. Or like Mr. Burgess worked with a lot of kids, like we've had some fair projects, so it just made sense that he was probably their advisor if we knew someone. So it's actually, once we get their papers, it's actually selected. Last year, I think some of the leadership team, I didn't do it, but some of the leadership team selected for kids.
Sounds hard. I'm glad we didn't have to do that.
It's super cool though. And we built in like most of it takes place with the research paper. The outside time is the project.
Yeah.
So that's what they do outside of, because the proposal happens in the junior English class, research paper, senior English. The portfolio presentation I know has fallen a lot on the English teachers. Because of dual credit, I couldn't give my kids as much time, but I did allow them some time. Because they'd be like, Mr. Chandler's class, but we had to move on because we were trying to fulfill what they needed in the dual credit classes, so.
So who teaches your senior English classes?
Mr. Taylor does just senior English, Mrs. Smith does the dual credit, and Mrs. Smith is also gonna do the one that we're adding in next year. It's gonna be in Q3, and our goal, this year it was a little bit later and it kind of fell when it was busy. Our goal is to try to do it right after spring break, maybe not that week, but the next. So, because they will be finished by the end of Q3. So kids who are struggling, we're gonna try to channel them to that class to finish. Unless they are very adamant they don't want to.
But the research paper is something that they work on.
Yeah, and that would go away regardless, like, or that wouldn't go away, like if you wanted to change things, which I hope you don't, but. It's okay, like, and you can look at it, but we've always kind of done a research paper, like right now the juniors are just finishing up one, which is cool because. We're starting to get kind of prepped for next year when it's a little bit more. So.
Does the state have guidelines for what has to be
I think, presentation and a paper.
Has a link on there
The link, where's it on
for the
this?
graduation requirements from the state.
I think it's just a presentation and paper. I haven't read it for a long time though, because we've just had ours, so.
I don't have
I
one.
thought we have,
No,
let me,
I've had one, I don't have the link on it.
let me go grab that.
Yeah, so I guess when you're looking at what's required from the state, what is a West Jefferson requirement? We have allowed our administrators to be able to help develop that. I guess that's the question. Nedra, that I heard you ask, or you didn't ask, you made a comment. Boy, that's a lot. And I guess that's the thing. I don't know if, do you get pushback, Christy, from parents saying this is too much? I don't know if our board members have.
You know, the only time I have was one that I don't think they anticipated how many hours it was gonna take, and it was the. But they finished, which was super cool,
Yeah.
and I think that was just like, wow, that was a lot.
So we'll get that attached. The senior
So-
project from the state description, and Carrie will get this attached. The senior project is a culminating project to show a student's ability to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate information and communicate that knowledge and understanding. So if you take that first sentence, that's kind of what the state is wanting you to do. A student must complete a senior project by the end of grade 12. Senior projects may be multi-year projects, so it could be something that they start working on in their junior year. Group or individual projects or approved pre-internship or school to work internship programs at the discretion of the school district or charter school. The project must include elements of research, development of a thesis, using experimental learning or integrated project-based learning experiences and presentation of the project outcome. Additional requirements for a senior project are at the discretion of the local school district. Completion of a post-secondary certificate or degree at the time of high school graduation or an approved pre-internship or internship program may be used to meet this requirement. So I guess I guess you could put on here if somebody was able to have a post-secondary certificate or that could take place of the senior project. But when I look at this, it depends on what you want that to mean, what it says, the culminating project of fellow students to analyze. I actually think, I haven't had a senior go through this. I think the biggest issue that has come up, but I can see that the school is working through to try to communicate those, is what does it really look like? What am I expected to do? And I can think back to when I was starting grad school and going through, what does it really look like? And this was after I had my bachelor's degree, was a teacher. Learning how to do those big projects and writing projects. If somebody doesn't know what it looks like, it's hard sometimes to jump in and know, and I think our district is doing a good job with that. But I don't know, board members, what do you think? Are we asking too much? Is it something like this would be the time to discuss that.
Seems like everybody's getting it done, so.
So far, they have.
Yeah. Getting a lot of help.
Are you finding that you have more students that are wanting to do a job shadow for the project or just?
You know, it probably depends on the year and the kids, because if you look at this list,
Yeah,
there's some job shadowing, but a lot of really personal and like the academic project. Some years it's been a lot of service, like they want to do the camps or they like. There was one this year, they made blankets for kids that they took to kids in pediatric wards, and so those are things we consider service.
But then how do you do research on
Which one?
making quilts or something?
You would.
You don't have to write your, remember, the research paper can be very different, so we then would take it. It probably should focus medically, so maybe problem solution of people who don't have insurance and have really sick kids. So if there's a problem solution paper that they could research and write about that would still connect to what they're doing. I know. I don't know what the girl did this year that did the pediatric nursing, because we didn't teach it this year, so I don't know a lot of their, I did So one thing I did do too, because I just wanted to see, I did have the teacher advisors before the presentation night turn in the folders over the weekend so that I could look through them. And so, because I know what I'm looking for to see, like, was it complete? Is there something I need to do? And so did the teacher advisors, but I just wanted to see them too. Like, I kind of missed being a part of that this year. And I don't know that everybody does that, but I just wanted to look through. And I was really impressed at what the kids did and what they got done. Like, I'll give you, for instance, on the building a drone one, I do remember that. I think their problem solution was drones can be very problematic when you fly them. And so I think they wanted to learn more about, like, what do we need to know if we want to fly them? And I think it was something similar to in that line. It's been a while, but some really cool things that they came up with.
So when they're turning in this folder, is this just for the project or is this project and the research?
So that right there, she's keeping throughout the summer. So these are things they're gonna do as they do their proposal. And so she's gonna hold on to them. So when they come back, she can give them to them. And then if you look in this booklet, this is the complete portfolio. They'll put those papers in, and so there's a forms section, so that's where a lot of those go. And then they have a table of contents that the things I've just talked to you about, they have it listed like what has to be.
I'm just
in it.
curious with his topic being, showing a visual, how do we put it? History, it's history that they've been taught from 7th grade through 12th grade. And he wants to have a video showcasing all the information.
Is that his project?
Yeah, that's his project. So I'm curious what his research paper would then be. So I didn't know if they had to have the research topic prepared at the same time as the project title.
So here's something interesting. It can change, and I've told kids that throughout the years. I'm assuming most of the teachers do. So if you look on the proposal, they have to put like, here's what I'm thinking about doing for my research paper. Sometimes kids change because they can't find research, so then the English teachers still make sure that it's a problem solution or argumentative paper. So on his proposal so you'll notice he doesn't have the last 2 items checked on that folder.
Correct.
So that'll go in after they present to us. And one of the things we do in the proposal is we try to give them ideas. So if you looked, this is where they can get some help from mentors. I had Mrs. Smith come out and say, one of the girls wants to learn sign language, and she's like, who could she get for a mentor? And I was like, surely we know someone. So we started kind of brainstorming and we said, well, do you think there's someone that signs in the court system? Or so we started texting some people. I don't know if we've heard back, but that's our goal, is to try to help kids. We actually turned down a proposal one year. So one of the things we want to do is make sure kids are safe. Like, we had a kid that wanted to go knock doors in New York City with a group. And I'm like, I don't think we can do that. If you want to go do that on your own, you can, but that probably shouldn't be a senior project presentation, because we don't want to endanger a student. And then they ended up doing something different. I still remember who the student was. I don't remember what their project was, but I know we told them no. Most of the time, it's never a no. It's maybe this needs some refining or define it better, and then they go back and fix it. So the proposal really is kind of them pitching their idea, and is it going to work? And we've even had kids change. So my son, he dreamed big. It didn't happen, so he had to redo his proposal. So he initially wanted to go down and learn about diesel mechanics with the Diesel brothers. And we had stopped in at their place and got a card, and we had a contact. He emailed them. They're like, yeah, sure, you can do that. So he was thrilled. And then he tried to get back to him when he really wanted to go do it, and crickets. So I tell kids, I'm like, dream big, try it. And if you have to alter and adjust. So I've had a few kids like this year that came and said, hey, I'm changing my project a little bit. And I think that's part of the process. And I love that they can recognize that. So.
Young lady that you said was interested in event planning and then kind of focused on the floral shop. What was her paper on?
The one about creativity in schools, like why we need to keep doing creative things in schools, because a lot of the jobs in this day and age require.
Problem solving.
Yeah, so it was a problem solution of like, and she's a lot of, I don't know if you know Sir Ken Robinson, but he writes a lot about creativity. And so one of my favorite things was to try to help them find stuff. And so once I knew their papers, I'd email them links to articles, and it's funny how it starts popping up when you it on the radar. Because it becomes kind of a collaboration with you and the student to help them get through that, especially the 10 to 12. But I think hers was close to the record. I think she had 19 pages. But it was interesting. Like, it was so fun to read. So that's what I mean.
I think this also too, in a way, teaches kids how to deal with stress. Because this is stressful. I mean, it's stressing me out as a parent listening to my child complain about this. But I think they have to understand how to process.
Well, and I hope when she's doing that, like, I hope she sees these, and I made this last night, and I think when you compartmentalize big things, they're more doable. And maybe this is something we add in so the kids go, oh, it's 4 things, I have these helps.
Yeah.
We try to tell them that, but
I think that would be, this is a great, like 30,000-foot view of the.
well,
why.
there's still one more typo. I found it when I paused.
Well,
Sorry, I wrote it really late last night.
But when it comes down to the kids, sometimes they want to see the checklist, the smaller amounts, and I'm wondering if maybe as you meet with your teachers, but Mrs. Smith, and as she's putting together that maybe she can put that portion into the handbook. Instead of the why in the handbook, like the student handbook, these are the things you gotta do. And just.
Well,
have
we
that.
have that on so they have a rubric. So there's a rubric, there's a checklist that the teacher advisors will go through. And the students have that in their folder that they get in that work, that Google Drive thing that we shared for them, along with the booklet that, again, they're streamlining, but
Do the students get the folder with the checklist on the front of it of all the papers that need to come back in that folder?
that's in the little booklet that they have there. So they always have access to it. They can print it. We help them print it. We're hoping with this class that, one of the things that so when she's stressed, I always tell kids, pick something you're excited to do. Like right now, just think about the paper or the project. And if you have time this summer, get started on it because it is really helpful. And even kids who are busy, like if they're like, I do hay all summer. Well, when hay's done, maybe you could take 2 days and get started. Because typically they have a project that relates to it. So again, if they can compartmentalize this, it's actually not as hard as it sounds. Because the project is kind of on their own time, but and so this is part of that class, like they get college visits. If they choose not to use them, we've allowed them to sometimes do, because sometimes it's hard that like if medical offices don't operate on Fridays or whatever, we encourage that first, but we've allowed a college visit. Like there was one kid, they did probation, it's on this list. They had to go on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and they were really struggling to get their hours because by the time, so we just allowed the 2 days college visit, and then they worked one out that was not a school day. So
And how many hours do they need?
20, which sounds like a lot, but when that student I told you went to my husband's lab, she did it in 3 days. She was done. So it's kind of, it just depends. Some kids spend hours and hours and hours. And I think that's their choice. But I've also told kids, if you don't finish, but you've done the 20, then you've done the project. So they just have to document the evidence for it. Job shadows are probably the easiest to gauge the time.
Yeah.
They have a log, so if you look in there under the mentorship, they log their time and what they did. His was kind of hard because he only did 2 auctions. So he had to watch some YouTube videos about chanting, and then he called the college that was there and they gave him some papers to read. So we logged about 3 hours of like practicing chants, watching YouTube videos. And so you have to get kind of creative a little bit sometimes with, depending on what you do, how you fill your hours, but then some just do tons.
Time in action.
I know.
So it sounds like that you have flexibility within this, that the requirements that the school district is offering. We're trying to teach kids to also come in, if they want to, I don't want to say push back against what you have, but if they come with a proposal, it sounds like the whole thing's been.
Yeah.
You've been able, you're not coming in and trying to fail kids, and I can see I can see the balance between having something that we do require our kids, like Andrew, you were saying, this is stressful for kids.
But I think if she can, like, I think you can address that and say, focus on your project right now. Your English teacher's gonna take you through the paper. And then there's even a class if you need to, but you'll start on a portfolio once the paper's done.
So different than going to a college course and you get your syllabus and you see everything you're going to be studying for the entire semester. That's overwhelming. And I think for a lot of kids to see this whole thing laid out, just, I have to do all of this, not realizing it's broken up over a
That's
period of
why
time.
I think we started with the proposal, like, we don't really show that they have access to the book.
Yeah.
Cause we know kids do that. They start to panic when they have to put the portfolio together, cause everything else is usually done. And I just, like, well, I remember one student in particular, just, we need more time in class. I said, I can't with the dual credit, but I'll give you 2 days. And they said, well, the other class, I said, I know, they're not getting college credit. And I said, it really is an organizational project. So I'm really glad that, again, like I said, my son has a hard time sitting down. So my husband had to corral him at the table. And we went down the checklist and I said, okay, Pete, where's these papers? He would pull them out. Okay, let's do your reflective essay. It really did take like 3 nights to put it
And
together.
those kids that don't have that support at home,
Will be that class.
they'll have a class available to help them.
We'll flip it, you're referencing. Parent access it, can we post it on Word docs? Is there a
Well-
way for there to be more communication?
Sure. I don't think at the moment they can, but they're also streamlining that booklet. So if we want to put a link in our running thing of the, what is that called, student handbook? There's no problem doing that.
So this would be my request. I did not know that there was an email sent out by the English teacher with information regarding the project. I found out about it by word of mouth. It would be helpful if the English teacher would communicate through the WestJ app
Okay.
specifically to parents, because parents that have that app get a notification that there's a message related to their child, which should be related to that class. And if they could just say, hey, just letting you know, there was an email sent out regarding projects or seniors, then people are directed to their email, which otherwise might have gone to the junk mail folder, which mine did. So
one
that would
thing
be.
I'll probably take ownership of that. I have encouraged them to use it. My guess is she might need a little more training because she's new, but I will definitely encourage that and I'll find out if she knows like that's available. 'Cause I feel bad. We have shown them. Those are the first of the year and yeah, revisit it, but I hope my school's been doing better with that. I hope. Cause I've really tried to encourage them to.
So Christine, those kids that sign up for that third quarter help on the paper. What if they get the paper written before they get that?
The paper should be done when they go in that. If it's not, that would help them finish it, edit it, perfect it.
But they think that some may think that's where they finish the paper. Or that they do the paper. And that's why.
No, because they get a grade in their English class. No.
So they're
So
doing.
this
it-
class is new and our goal with it is to help kids finish. So if they aren't done with their research paper, that's a good place to finish.
How will they know to sign up for that at the first of the year?
They won't.
We'll just move them out of one class at
Yeah.
that time.
And it's really easy with the quarter class. So some kids did choose the class, like it was offered in the registration. So this is brand new. But even, like I said, this kid that had to miss because they can only go on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, that came probably 3 weeks before the senior presentation. So we just started to troubleshoot of like, how do we help these kids that don't have like maybe the ability to, or like they worked after school or, you know, just things like that. And that's where this class idea came up. So again, we're learning and trying to really.
Okay, so but normally they're gonna be doing it all along in their English class as part of this.
The research paper should be done in the English class specifically. The project is on their own time. The portfolio, they collaborate with the teacher advisor. And they do some in the English class, but we're hoping this class will help if kids need that extra time. Because like I said, they've done all the stuff to that point. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense till you see it, and it's kind of cool when you see it happen so much, because it really does get done. And at the end, it really is just an organizational thing. So you might say, well, then what are they gonna do for 9 weeks? They work on their presentation, so they create a PowerPoint. They can practice their presentation. They can finish their hours. So there are a lot of things that they can do in that 9 weeks to get stuff done. And I will definitely, so is it too late to send it out? Like, should we try to?
I think she could do it again. I don't know how many parents saw it. Because like I said, mine went to my junk mail. And if I wasn't looking for it,
Sadly, I got mine, but I didn't read it because I've done it.
and if I didn't know the teacher's first name, I wouldn't have noticed it either,
No,
so,
that's definitely something we can do.
no. Because a lot of times you don't get direct communication from your student, even though you would like to, you don't hear about everything, and so I think it would help if the teacher prefaced.
Would it be helpful to also have the link to the booklet, like access on the student? So
Yeah.
I think that's a project Mr. Gemar and Mrs. Smith are working on to get rid of.
Do you keep those senior projects? Or do you
No,
look
they
at-
take
They
them.
take them?
The reason why I have his is because I know if he took it, it would probably be in the garbage. And I've really, like, I've sent it around to so many people. Like, I'm like, if you want to look at it, here's a finished product so that they can kind of get the
That's
overall
what I'm
vision.
thinking. It would help them to see a finished product.
And what's cool is the Canva thing that you see, that came from, we used to just have them make a big poster. And then one year a student did that and I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. So I changed it to that. And we quit having them do the posters because Canva is so much more relevant in this day and age to learn like digital design. So all of this is made on Canva. And so the kids get practice using tools that will be relevant.
Well, I missed that first part. Where do they learn Canva?
Canva is just a free online graphic design
Do we
program.
teach it, or do they just learn it themselves?
No, I use it a lot in my English class, but this might be some kids' first exposure to it. But what I love is once they're exposed to it, they use it for everything, like when they make their a lot of the stuff you see posting. The activities or whatever, kids know about Canva.
Student leadership uses it a lot.
Yeah.
No other questions you guys have for Mrs. Scott? Like, this is one of the things that when we look at that balance between having a district or a state requirement and what the district offers. I know we get accused as educators, maybe not here West Jefferson, but in general, that you guys don't hold kids to high academic standards. That gets thrown out at educators all the time, that you guys, that you don't value education, you don't value academics. I do think that this process is one way for us to say that we do value academics.
True.
And I agree with Andrea that this process will prepare kids for projects in such that they'll do at college. I do think that the communication piece, Andrea, like you mentioned, Christy, if you take that back, providing a link where parents have access to the exact same thing that the kids have, I think that will take away a lot of the questions that people
That's-
have.
Great suggestion, and I am going to take ownership of that, because. That app, I've pushed, but I even still, I can do the texts now with it. I just haven't taken the time to like set up rooms and. It's a lot, and so I know there's some teachers who are really comfortable with it over there and are doing a really good job, but that's something that we can definitely.
It's a
fix.
great resource. It would be
Yeah.
nice if it was streamlined where everybody went that direction for communication. So-
Yeah, it is a good resource.
And the other thing is if people are having a hard time receiving communications, if they have the app, then they are getting it.
And we're pushing it, like when parents come in, we are pushing it, so. And I guess one of the things that's hard at high school, so I love good input like that, is how much do we give? And I get this is big. And so I don't know, you just think, well, we're high school kids, but I get that like now that my kids have done it too. I just always knew, so it wasn't hard, so you just make the assumption that so does everybody else, so I think that's really good feedback.
And these kids that complete that, they should be proud. And they should
And
be
they
proud of
were.
themselves.
That's what's so cool is to see them that night, like, I don't know. I was so stressed about that night because we brought community members back and we had some kids that needed some intense help, but oh wow, they nailed it. It was awesome. It was so cool. And you two are gonna, maybe you'll probably come see your granddaughter and you'll get to see yours, and then you have one coming up soon,
Right.
so you'll get to see the kind of the whole process, and then you might even have more feedback. That's why I say like, what I love is every year we're trying to make it better, but still keep the quality of the project.
Right, but I guess my concern was I see how stressed my granddaughter can be over so many things she has to do.
Yep.
And then I think, boy, that senior project just seems to be a lot, but I'm more friendly toward it now. I feel like maybe it's really good for them. But I just see there's so many hard classes that a person's in and then they have to add that. But I think it's I think it's a good thing.
Well, we're trying to build in supports, because we do see how busy they are too.
Yeah.
And they do a lot.
And also, when you say those hard classes, those are by choice.
Well, but
Like,
that's
you don't have to take dual credit classes.
what you want.
You do, and so you want them, but you also have to be okay with kids struggling a little bit. And I think sometimes we look at that as adults and we're trying to balance that, oh, I want my kid to be in all the dual credit classes. I want them to be in all the athletics. I want them to be in all of student government. And I want them to do everything else, but then I don't want them to stress. I'm sorry, like that's part of life, and sometimes you have to say no to certain things, but you can't say no to I guess if that's what you're looking at and saying, I'm stressed, so let's have the district change all their requirements that they're doing. But when you go back to the state definition, you still have to have,
That's changed a lot.
you still have to have something that shows their ability to analyze, synthesize, evaluate information. And then, I think we're matching that with this. I think people could push back on the 20 hours. Is that a hard line thing? But
And I think what's been cool is I think the average, like, kids spend, like, Ty Shute made a medicine bag out of leather work. I think he spent like 60 hours. But he does it for fun, but he wanted to take it a step further. So like the paintings that some of these kids did,
if
like,
they can find something,
it just it blew my mind.
find something that they enjoy, that's
Yeah.
part of the project. But I like how you have that things built into it, but
And I will say one thing, like this night, and many nights, we've had a few kids that weren't allowed to present because they weren't finished. But as he said, there hasn't been a student from West Jefferson High School that has not graduated because of the senior project. So if they don't present that night, then they still have to get with their teacher advisor and another judge and do the presentation. So unfortunately, they do miss out on it, and I think they feel that loss because, like I say, the kids who did this were so proud of themselves. Like, it was just a really cool night. But so was the other person that maybe needed a little bit of extra time once they got it done.
I wasn't pushing back. I hope you didn't think
Oh,
that.
I
was
don't-
questioning.
I think oftentimes people just need to know.
Understand.
Yeah. And I love it. I think it's a neat thing, and it's really improved. And we've changed, like, Mr. Hadley made the suggestion of the open arena, because when we used to do it, we put just 3 kids per room with their teacher advisor, so then you couldn't see what kids were doing. And at Shelley, so that's why I say, like, it's been kind of fun to see it change and evolve, and then a sweet lady that came, she's like, it's really loud in here, it's hard hearing kids, this has been the coolest thing, I can't believe the stuff they did. So then I thought, well, maybe next year we divide and put some in that other room and some in that room so that the noise level is. So like every year we try to evaluate and try to make it a little bit better.
was she saying we needed air conditioning?
Nope, she just said that it was hard to hear what the kids were saying because there, like this year were so many people going and talking to the kids, like that's what was lacking. The year my son did it, is the parents showed up and they're like, they went to sit by their kids, and so that's why we brought back a community judge or their mentor. And we tried to help the kids. When Mrs. Taylor did it, they had 2 community members and the judge. I thought for the first year, maybe that's too many, but I loved, and then there were people that just came like to see, so that was cool too.
It's kind of finishing out what they started in 3rd and 4th grade. Those projects where they have to learn about something or someone, and then, they're all in here, how noisy it can be.
Yeah.
But it's just on a much higher level, obviously.
But it's, I'm excited for you to see it. It's a neat thing. It really is a neat night. But I was really stressed this year. Normally I'm like, hey, my research papers are done. I'm good to go. But this year and this group of kids, yeah, they did an awesome job.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, that was really long. But I love it.
Informative.
I do have one more policy that we're in the draft developing. This is one that we want to address during the summer. I don't anticipate us going into a lot of conversation, but I just want to make sure we start getting it on here. With the student parking. This is will be one of those situations where we, as a district, remember, school districts, school boards are taught to be at the 30,000 foot mark to establish some student vehicle parking. I still like the idea of allowing, I still like the idea of having the administration and student council having chances to look at different things based on the kids that are there at that time. I know with those discussions going forward that a lot of the students learn some valuable life skills through that process, but like as a district, if we did have some of the main things for safety, that comes to having a process in place before kids park here, whether they have their driver's license, vehicle insurance, vehicle registration. That is something that I know that other districts already have in place. And so us doing that wouldn't be anything different than what others have. These are all drafts, it's a suggestion, the place to start on that.
Now, where is it on our, I don't see it.
So you should see it as the third one.
Oh, you put it on.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just looking the other day.
Yes,
So
it's on
it's on
today,
there.
so that would be one for us to go through. So that's what I have. We'll have other policies that will come up during the summertime before
So
we.
will that be on the next work meeting?
Yeah,
Okay. The calendar.
so this was just by way of information. We did approve the calendar at our last special meeting. Those, it's right here on that. I believe, I had Julie put that out on social media. And that's what it is.
Super. Okay. And lastly, just some upcoming things. Our board barbecue will be the 21st. Everyone can sign to be here about 10:30. Cross your fingers for good weather. Graduation will be the 29th. Want us there about 10 minutes early.
Yeah, 10-15 minutes early, just before they start playing that music, so. So we don't want you walking into your spot right
Right,
with
with the kids with
the.
Okay. We need to schedule a work meeting then.
I think we should have a work meeting. There's a lot of different things that will be on that. I'd like it to be. After school is out, and I know it's a busy time for everyone. But if we could have a work meeting. Slash special meeting, probably sometime, I know we have our meeting on June 20th. But. Or sometime, I don't know if that fits for everybody's schedules. That would give us time to complete budgets. Report to the board on teacher negotiations, all of that. Sometimes, the week of the 10th, if possible,
I can do the 14th that week.
on Flag Day.
We're going to be on.
That sounds,
Hold on.
I know it's a busy time. I know like with Tyson, it might be tough
Right.
with props.
Or I can call in of a different day. Works better.
Andrew, do you have any days
I
that
don't
are?
have anything going on that week, so.
Chris can't be here on the 12th.
So the
Okay.
14th would work for Chris.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
14th?
nothing on that
Would
day.
Friday the
yet.
14th work for you?
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
Let's make that the tentative plan. If you guys will let me know if there's a problem with that.
So that's leading up to Father's Day.
For
that
what
weekend.
time?
It wouldn't matter to me.
that's fine for me.
Probably like 10 in the morning. If that works.
Yes, that's fine, as long as I know.
Perfect.
Okay, let's put that up tentative and then we'll confirm with everybody, knowing that. That's a crazy time for next and you better be able to call in. Let's do it.
And then the 20th, the following Thursday, will be our fee hearing, budget hearing, regular meeting, all the meetings,
All the meetings.
starting at
So-
9:30.
So I appreciate, we'll probably want to have lunch for everybody on that, on the 14th
Yes, we
as
will.
well.
We'll provide lunch.
I just anticipate with us getting through a lot of the policy stuff that we'll have to look at. We'll have new policies from the legislation and everything.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, the floor will be open for a motion to adjourn. Madam Chair, so moved. Is there a second?
Yes.
Those in favor? Any opposed? All right.